Yeah. You gotta have some faith. You know we coming in. We are coming in hot right here, right now on Black Power Media. This is the Remix Morning Show. In case you didn't know, now you do. You got a clue, so you gotta tell your crew. Now, coming through, I go by the name of the Air Doctor. Let me introduce you to your host with the most. We got no other than Burn It Down, Kim Brown. And Kamal K. Franklin.
Oh, well, I guess it would be nice if I could touch your body. I know not everybody got a body like you.
Yo, him and Bobby Caldwell that just made his transition. They get passes.
Bobby Caldwell passed away.
Yeah, they get their passes to the.
George Michael gets a pass?
George Michael gets a pass? Come on.
Yeah, come on.
I don't know if he gets a. I mean, maybe he can come for brunch. But
what pass are we discussing? What pass does he get?
To the barbecue.
The barbecue.
He get a
there y'all go with that barbecue shit. There y'all go. Everybody want to invite the white folks to the barbecue.
Well, I was like, I don't know if George Michael gets a pass.
He can't get a plate to go. Come on.
He can get a plate to go. Yeah. He can sit in the car, get a plate.
Get him a couple pieces of some fried whiting. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Word.
Salad, some green beans. Yeah.
I don't know if that career was that R&B extensive or whatever.
Whoa. Whispers?
What?
Talking about
what? Careless Whisper?
Father
I liked Wham and George Michael, a couple of the songs, but the whole, I mean, it's not a career. It's not a whole
Wham.
No, Wham. What? Wake Me Up Before You Go.
Come on,
that gets a pass. Wake Me Up Before You Go gets a pass.
I think it. Yeah.
I mean, it's a children's song. Basically, children's song.
What was the other song that they had? It was Careless Whisper, Wake Me Up Before You Go, and then they had the original Baby Mama drama song.
Father
and
Figure?
I can't. No. That was George Michael. This was Wham. Chat. I don't have my computer up, but y'all know the name of the song. Shit. Anyway, I can't call it.
It's like 2 or 3. Yeah, that's what I remember. Careless Whisper and Wake Me Up Before You Go. What was the breakup song?
It's a Baby Mama song.
Oh, look at this. We started.
Somebody told me. Everything she wants is everything she needs.
Come on. Big up Black Magic, starting the morning off with 20 beans.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you so much, Black Magic. We appreciate that.
Where the rest of y'all?
That's right. Everything you want. Layer blogs. You're right.
Easy, Kamak. Easy.
Everything she wants. Yeah, that's the name.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Prince is great. Somebody, I mean, I'm gonna kick Anarchus out the chat.
Come on, Anarchus.
You can't just state the obvious.
Captain Obvious over here.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
we still love you though. I'm just saying.
Just the idea of like Prince
and political thing, the political things. Go ahead.
Prince and Michael Jackson having beef is still some of the funniest shit just to even think about. Like these two very skinny men, one of them wearing high waters and glitter socks, and the other one wearing heels and some leather pants.
Like Mike would have beat it. I mean, I think Prince would have beat his ass though. I think Prince
walking in the party gritting on it. You must be out your mind. Michael Jackson from Gary, Indiana, man. Michael Jackson would have mollywop that ass. Been Jerry curl juice flying everywhere. Wave Nouveau juice all over the place.
I mean, it was mad disrespect that you asked Prince to be in your video and your first line is "Your butt is mine." Come on now, you can't.
Is that it? What is that?
That's what happened.
That's a new story. What is
Michael Jackson asked Prince to be in the video instead of
a bad video
instead of Wesley Snipes, and he was like, "Okay, we're gonna do this video," and the first line is "Your butt is mine." Prince was like, "Nah, bruh, I'm not being in that video. I'm not being in that." No.
So Prince was supposed to be the gangster in the video?
Yes.
I need confirmation for this. I don't know about the story.
That sounds like a wayward story.
About this story,
like an urban legend story. I'm not quite sure about that one either.
You know somebody right when they put their hands up like, "Hey."
Believe what you want to believe. I know that
you know what I'm saying?
True. The Prince would have beat Michael Camp. I mean, Michael had family behind him. Like they all would have jumped on Little Prince.
Oh yeah.
But Prince versus Michael, I think Prince, like he was a little bit of an athlete. Like he played ball.
Thank you. Prince said that in the interview. He definitely did. Appreciate
what you. He said. What
about the your butt is mine line? And him posing.
Really?
I ain't gotta believe me. I'm just the ear doctor.
Let me find out these
That's why
dudes
we
were
need
writing diss
confirmation.
tracks.
That's
These
exactly
dudes
why
were
we need
writing pop song diss tracks about each other.
He should have. They should have. Didn't
That
they do
would
the
have
whole
been dope.
dance off with with James
That would have
Brown?
been dope.
Even though Michael was definitely a better dancer than Prince. I mean, that's
Yeah, but Prince was a musician. Prince could play everything.
true.
Mike couldn't hit them splits like Prince though. Let's not get it twisted and work that microphone. Well, he could work the microphone because they both learn from James Brown. So let's not get it twisted.
Learned and slow
all day. Yeah.
So big up to James Brown. We put them both on.
Well, and then wait a minute. Didn't y'all hear about the rivalry with Prince and Rick James? Which thing was that?
Too?
Documentary.
Yes.
They tried out. Now Rick James would have beat everybody's ass. I believe
everybody's ass. Everybody's ass.
He got in
high
the coke,
or not high.
The coke rage.
Yeah, coke rage.
That part of the Rick James documentary where he jumped on the desk of the Motown executive and allegedly slapped him in the face with his member. And I think that's where I'm Rick James bitch came from. Oh man.
5 fingers say to the face.
No, he slapped him with his yang yang.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
that's mad disrespectful. Yeah.
At work, ear doctor, they was in the
at work,
like a club. He slapped this man in his face.
Wait a minute, is there any time where it's going to not be disrespectful though? I mean, unless asked for. I think in any other scenario, it's not a compliment. It's not. You're not sealing a deal with a dick smack on you.
Lionel Richie is what the executive said to Rick James's manager. He said, Lionel Richie, because your boy acts like this. That's why Motown about to throw all its resources behind Lionel Richie. And damn if it didn't happen.
And Lionel carried on for a while.
Fiesta together. What? Come on and sing along.
Yeah.
That was like the fakest reggae calypso song.
Yeah,
ever.
He should have never done that one. Yeah.
That was hot though.
Well, I mean, but see, I felt like that was music also for white people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like he went from the Commodores to making very palatable R&B, poppy kind of songs. Like, what was the joint he wrote for Kenny Rogers? Lady,
yeah.
Oh, lady.
Your knight in shining armor, and I love you.
He's like, and I made hundreds of millions of dollars by doing that.
Hundreds of millions of dollars. Lionel Richie is so rich.
But his career, he was that bad. He did that bad love song that was sort of like your career's done, B.
Well, Lionel Richie
he started writing those terrible love songs.
Hello was the joint, man. That stayed.
I liked Hello with the blind girl in the video.
That video was great.
You're looking for. Yeah,
like she's blind. Oh my god.
I agree. I was like, and she was fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, she was an ordinary blind girl.
That was the same girl from the Thriller video, wasn't it?
No, I don't know about that.
I don't think that was Ola Ray. I don't think that was.
I don't think so. Yeah, it was a different cute blind girl.
Okay.
I don't even think the girl was blind, guys. I'm pretty sure she was acting.
Yeah, she was fake blind. Yeah,
she was fake blind.
She was fake blind. She did it well.
Yeah,
she did it well. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't even tell.
Your boy Lionel should have walked in and be like, "Nah, this doesn't look like me. You got to work." She was making that statue of it.
I bet you there were like 10 blind girls who auditioned for that spot, and all of them got turned down because of
Of course, because of ableism. Yes, they don't want anybody actually disabled. They want an able person to pretend to be disabled. But that's changing with casting. There is a deaf young lady who is, I think, in the Creed movie. Anybody seen the latest Creed?
Oh yeah, she played that. And I want to give a spoiler out, but you should go watch the movie. The daughter, she's also deaf, and he's teaching her how to box. So guess who's coming next?
Right? Oh,
guess who's coming next? Yes,
come through.
Black female rocker.
Yes. Yeah, I could see Layla Ali coming and joining the franchise.
How many have he done? He's done like 3 of them himself now.
Yes,
I think it's why it's called Creed 3.
I don't. My bad for not paying attention to every pop phenomenon movie that comes the fuck out. You know what I'm saying? My bad.
It's so good, my brother.
My bad. Creed 3. I haven't seen the first 2. I think I saw the first one like on a movie on a plane someplace or whatever.
Yeah.
Creed is good. It's
It
good.
was.
Shout out
Needs
to
to give
Michael
it up.
B. Jordan. Shout out to Michael B. Jordan doing the damn thing and rebuking that corny moniker. Like, yeah, let me get a corny nigga like that, 33 body and paid. Yep. I will take his corny ass tonight. Okay. Shit.
He be popping that corn. Stop playing.
Woo-wee.
All right.
See
So
a corny nigga with body like that. Lord have mercy.
I look like that.
Are you corny?
Nah, not corny.
No, he
You said I definitely am.
hot butter, pop the popcorn.
Oh.
Hey, nah, but ain't nothing matter with being corny, man. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, thank y'all for tuning in to the Remix Morning Show this morning. Make sure y'all hit that like button, subscribe button. We got news. We got another host coming on later who goes by the name of Jackie. We got a dope interview coming up. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, she be back here.
Okay.
So
okay, that's what I mean. I know you're doing it.
Go ahead. No,
but I just wanted to real quick
interrupt me, please.
I'll definitely do that. Kim, so we're going to have somebody. I want you to make sure that you are on. Jackie can also be on, but we have a guest coming at 9:00 to talk about reproductive rights.
Ooh, good.
Follow up to the conversation we were having on Tuesday. So just want to let you know that.
Oh, that would be a good one. Good job, Kamal. Woo.
After that, yeah. Thank you. Hopefully now she won't ditch after that introduction.
Hey, Women's History Month. This is how we do right here on Black. Just go along with it, Kamal. Sure. Women's History Month.
That's why we're doing it. Yeah.
Yes. With that said, let's go ahead and take our first break right here on the Remix Morning Show. Yeah. What's good, everybody? Welcome out once again to the Remix Morning Show right here on Black Power Media. Make sure y'all hit that like button, subscribe button, and all those buttons down there that share, care, and all that stuff. Go ahead to patreon.com, drop some change on Black Power Media, or go to a Cash App, Black Power Media. $ Black Power Media. Yeah, with that said, let's go ahead and talk about a certain artist that we're going to spotlight right here, right now. Who are we going to talk about? Keeping it with the theme of Women's History Month. No other than Amel Larrieux. Yes. Amel Beautiful, as I would say. Amel Larrieux, she is a singer, songwriter, and keyboard player. So with that said, she was rocking out with Bryce Wilson with the group Groove Theory. So they had their duo going on for a minute. Then she wound up leaving the group in '99, and she released her solo album, Infinite Possibilities. After that, well, let me tell you real quick about her. She's straight from New York. She came out during the whole neo soul era, and she got her influences from people like Ella Fitzgerald, Prince, Sade, Stevie Wonder, Shaka Khan, Patrice Rushen, Jimi Hendrix, and Joni Mitchell. These are all different people she kind of got her style from. And then at the same time, she would hit certain octaves that was on some Minnie Riperton type octaves. So she could really carry it. Two of her known songs she did come out with, Groove Theory, was Tell Me If You Want Me To and Keep Trying, which was some dope songs, very dope. But like I said, she came out with some albums on her own. Actually, Infinite Possibility, Brave Bird, which was one of my favorite albums. Morning, Lovely Standards, and Ice Cream Every Day. So, yeah, she had her own label, Blissful Life, came out with those. So if you want to ever check her out and hear some of her dope music, she got up-tempo, down-tempo. The girl's nice. With that said, let's go ahead and get back to the Remix Morning Crew. You know how we do. All right?
We can be Yes. Woo, that was a good one, Ear Doctor. Amel Larrieux to me is one of a handful of R&B singers that I would truly call songbirds, because as you mentioned, like that upper register that she has, like you said, kind of like Minnie Riperton, you know what I'm saying? Minnie Riperton, Amel Larrieux, Denise Williams, like songbirds. Woo!
Denise Williams is underrated. She should be, she should be talked about more. Have you done a Denise Williams thing?
I will next week.
Yeah, make that happen, son. What's wrong with you? That should have been done. That should have been done in the first month. I don't understand.
Y'all know who
Yes,
discovered
little
Denise
boss.
Williams, right?
I'll get right on it.
Whoa.
You're a little uppity today. You are a little uppity today. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with you.
Light skin privileges,
Oh shit. Y'all know who discovered Denise Williams, right? Well, I'm not sure who ultimately discovered her, but anyway, she used to sing backup for Stevie back when. She used to sing backup for Stevie. Yeah, there's a couple of performances in the 70s, and you'll see Denise as part of Stevie's backup singers. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it. That's the artist spotlight for the day. I will catch y'all next break. Peace.
Peace.
Oh man. Amel has got a discography, Holmes.
Does she?
She did. She has one song with Sade's backup band, Sweetback, called "You Will Rise." Oh,
and
so
she got nominated for a Grammy for that one. Also,
did she really?
Yes, she did.
Oh wow. She has a song called. She has a because you're a hater. She has a song called "Gills and Tails" that I play with frequency still. So yes, Amel Larrieux. What a one! I didn't even know she was from New York. What borough is she from? Ear doctor, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm just dragging this
come
out.
on back here, doctor. Apparently,
real quick. What borough is
come
she
back
from?
from the toilet or wherever you went. I think he went to the bathroom.
And we didn't even get into groove theory. What the fuck did Bryce do? I mean, Bryce was the fine brother who was the other half of groove theory who never sang a note. And I was always confused. I'm like, oh, he just there to look fine. Okay, cool. I'm with it. Don't get me wrong.
He's the Oates of Harlem Oates, or is it the other one?
Oh, don't you disrespect John Oates like that.
She's from New York City.
And what borough?
New York City, New York, New York.
All right, bye.
You don't know. That means you don't know. Probably Manhattan. I think he's trying to say, but
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, come on. If Kim knew about New York, then she would know what I'm talking about.
Nigga, I know New York has boroughs. That's not everywhere is New York. It's New York, but in you know what I'm done with. I don't want to talk to you no more.
See, I told you he was acting up today.
yes, he is. All right. Well, anyway, before we slap the ear doctor, shall we, Kamau, slap that map?
Slap that map.
Yep. Good morning, remixers. Rise and shine or wake and bake, whatever you choose to do. Today is the Remix Morning Show on Thursday, March the 16th. It's Kim, Kamau, and the ear doctor. Jacqueline will be joining us momentarily. So I see we have about 175 in the chat. The 50 to 100 Jackie loyalists, please let them know that Jackie will be joining us so we can get these numbers up. We appreciate y'all so much. Please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, comment. Apparently commenting on the videos helps to let YouTube know that y'all like the thing. So try to engage with the content as much as you're able. Big up to the ever infamous dope chat forever. Burn, 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 burn. We see you, chat. Thank you. Come out. What you got for the folks?
What I got for the folks. So let's go. Let's do a little trip around the world. You want to start around the world?
I've been around. I've been.
That was you. I've been around the world, and I.
See, I'm singing the remix.
Oh, my bad.
It was a remix. What? Who was singing? Was that Carl Thomas Shaw singing on the background of the "Been Around the World" remix?
Was it?
Yeah.
Then you got "I've been around the world."
That's Lisa.
Is that what you're gonna do? You're gonna pop one with bad vocals?
Let's get that "Been Around the World" remix a little later, Ear Doctor. If we make take some requests, if we make our chat goal. But let's go around the world. Come out. Where are we headed?
All right, I want to do a little follow up because there's a video. Video is always exciting, of course. U.S. releases video of Black Sea drone incident with Russian jet. Pentagon says declassified footage shows Russian Su-27 approaching the back of MQ-9 drone and beginning to release fuel as it passes. And so just want to see this. So this is like a little Top Gun for y'all, a little Top Gun.
Okay.
So they got a little descriptor. So it passed. So okay, that's the big deal there. Okay. And you're not supposed to do that apparently.
Who produced this? The Defense Department, the
Yeah, the
Pentagon?
Pentagon. Yeah, they released a video saying, "Aha!" So they did, and it said before hitting its propeller. So again, no one is saying the incident took place in international airspace on Tuesday, and has caused a spat between Russia and the U.S. over what happened. Well, it's not as exciting as a Top Gun movie, I guess, but you know. But
Yeah,
they
this
took
caused
the drone out. The United States military has released footage. It says it was an unsafe interception of a U.S. drone by a Russian jet over the Black Sea. Of course, no one's discussing why they are flying a drone over the Black Sea, but yet to spy on Russia. The U.S. on Tuesday alleged that the Russian Su-27 fighter jet struck one of its Reaper drones during a surveillance and reconnaissance mission, forcing U.S. operators to bring it down in international waters. So the big thing here is to note that it's a surveillance and reconnaissance mission during a time period where the United States and the Western allies, i.e. NATO, are doing everything possible to supply Ukraine with weaponry while there's an ongoing war between the two nations. And so what would you expect at this particular time? I was hoping for a little bit more excitement from the video, like a little Tom Cruise action kind of thing. We didn't get that, but you know, so.
Hey, now, I think we've got somebody else joining us.
Morning, y'all. Morning.
Good
How are
morning. Good
you?
morning.
Ear
And as
doctor.
we, good
Oh, I'm
morning.
sorry. No, can Ear Doctor give Jacqueline her intro, her proper
Oh, is
intro?
that going to happen? Okay.
Well, I don't. It's okay.
Jackie
No, no,
Luke,
no.
man.
Oh, hell, no, nigga, no. That is not. That
Jackie
is not.
Luke,
Oh,
man.
There we go.
oh, what
That's a
did
little
I
too
do to
gritty. That
make
was a little
him
too gritty.
mad?
Put that raspy in your voice, man. You better stand up and salute a queen when you see her. Say her name right.
I'm like,
That
wait,
was a little
what did
too
I
gritty right
do?
there. I don't know. That last one sounded a little lascivious.
Jackie Luke, man.
This is just getting weirder and
Yeah,
weirder.
you should just keep moving with the
Jack
news.
though?
Yeah,
Is it Jack K? Is it a Jacqueline?
Jackie 227.
Jackie, how do you pronounce your name? Is it Jacqueline? Jacqueline?
It's
Jackie?
Jacqueline. It's Jacqueline.
Jacqueline.
Yep, it's Jacqueline. It's the typical Black American pronunciation. Jacqueline.
Hey, real quick, how much? I think I saw in a story, and tell me if this says this in this article come out about the price of that Reaper drone. Let me tell you something. Anything named Reaper, shoot that shit the fuck down. Okay, shoot it down. Dog. Shoot it down. Get it out of here. But I thought the number was really astronomical. I did I hear 30 million? Like it's a big number for one drone.
38 million.
Wow.
38 million. Yeah.
Yeah, for one drone. And the fact that it's called a Reaper drone, you know that word means harvest of or death, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all this stuff, it's just a reconnaissance. No, it's not.
No, it isn't. Reaper. What's the Reaper?
38
Grim
million
Reaper. Come to
for
collect
one.
souls.
No,
Like
that's a shock. Yeah. I mean, I guess I understood it was obviously these things are very expensive, but 38 million for one drone.
For one.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many they have. 100? How many y'all think they have? 250, 500,
Oh, they
1,000?
probably have thousands. Honestly, they're probably I mean, just like I always, because I don't think the Department of Defense is ever really entirely transparent on how much of anything they have. Because I mean, remember, the DoD hasn't passed an audit in a decade, ever since federal agencies were being audited. So they literally cannot account for the material, equipment that they had. They don't know. They lose stuff. They can't account for money. They can't account for equipment. They don't know how much of whatever it is they have. But I always think about it in terms of aircraft carriers. Like the United States has the largest number of aircraft carriers, more than any other country in the world. We do not need that many aircraft carriers, but we have that many, and we keep building more. I think they're talking about building some more aircraft carriers. So I think of all military equipment in that way. No matter how much it is we have more of it than any other country, and we don't need any of it. That's That's how. But you know who does keep track of how much of this stuff that exists? The defense contractors who
Mhm.
actually make them. They know. They know how many they have produced, anything for the US military, but we keep forgetting to ask them Bamas how many they've made. So
now the race is on for trying to recover the drone. I guess it sank in waters 4,000, potentially 4,000 feet deep, if I'm not mistaken. And so now the question will be who's going to recover the drone to see who gets to study it and for reverse technology. There was another story that was out earlier about how Russia is attempting, well, Russia has given Iran past U.S. military equipment. And when Iran, of course, sank a drone some years ago, it took that and used reverse technology. And so now the U.S. is trying to either hope that they recover it first, or that Russia can't recover it. So the drone wars continue, and the fallout from it continues.
I think I saw somebody from the Pentagon in a package yesterday say something about, oh, well, the drone has been broken up into many pieces, so even if Russia does recover it, it won't be anything. I'm like, whatever y'all say, man. Russia already got that shit. Russia went and scooped. They knew that where that joint was going to fall. I mean, I don't know that for a
they
fact,
were
but I'm
watching
pretty
it fall out of the sky. They're like,
exactly. No, they
right
got
there,
that.
go get it.
They got that already.
So we hit on one more international story unless somebody else got something.
I got nothing.
Okay.
Kamau, check the email I sent you yesterday. Oh, Jackie, I'm so glad you're here. Well, that's not pertaining to the story that I sent you yesterday, Kamau, but there's another story that I'll send you. But the one I'm talking about, I think, is the Mississippi Today story, and it has to do with the ongoing water crisis that is happening in Jackson. But this story pertains to the water situation on the campus of Jackson State University. Where students are experiencing, water outages, they're experiencing heat outages, the aging plumbing and sewer infrastructure on the campus of Jackson State, which I believe is occupying like the oldest part of the city. Do I have that right, Kamau?
Yeah, that is the oldest part of the city. I don't see the story though.
Oh, well, okay, then give me a moment. We'll come back to that. Let me get it together.
I think let me just make sure.
I sent you the Westmore playing basketball story, and then it was the other link. It was the other link, but that's okay if it didn't show up in the email. I'll resend it.
Okay.
But anyway, so how's everybody doing?
Well, in the meantime, I'm gonna come back to the story that I was gonna do real quick then until you send that other one, which is basically Israel is getting closer. This is Iman Deweese. Israel is getting closer to passing a bill that shrinks the Supreme Court powers and strengthens Shin Bet. So the parliamentary passed preliminary readings on two bills to shrink the Supreme Court's authority and allow intelligence services to gather personal data from travelers. It says on Tuesday, again, the Israel Congress passed a first reading of a new bill that would allow the government to overrule decisions made by the Israeli Supreme Court. The bill also places the authority to declare a prime minister's incapacity to govern solely in the hands of the government or the, am I saying it right? The Knesset?
Knesset.
Yeah, say it again.
Knesset.
Knesset, okay.
That's the Israeli parliament?
Yes, which is currently the most right-wing government in Israeli history. The bill suggests that a prime minister is only considered incapable in the case of physical and mental incapability, meaning that charges of corruption, bribery, fraud, and breach of trust charges would still linger over Netanyahu would not be enough to remove a prime minister from power. And it says during the same Knesset hearing on Tuesday, Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee voted to move for second and third readings of a bill that would empower Israeli intelligence agencies by giving them access to personal information from airlines with regard to passengers on flights entering, exiting, or passing through the so-called State of Israel. Implications of a weakened Supreme Court. Israel has no written constitution, and it is instead governed by a set of basic laws. This has historically allowed Israel policymakers to introduce new bills to reshape Israeli governments, which some say has progressively led to the current right-wing settler-led government. And so, this is getting a lot of news coverage in mainstream news as the Israeli government turning more right-wing than it already has been. Of course, my estimation, I think in many's, this may be, a surge towards more right-wing activity, but there's nothing about the prior governments that haven't also been extremely right-wing and that have not carried on in the taking of land from Palestinians, particularly in what's considered the West Bank at this stage, and it hasn't continued in terms of imprisoning Palestinians in Gaza, where they cannot leave Gaza basically without permission from Israelis, because the Egyptians have been working. The only other exit out of Gaza is through Egypt, and Egypt has been working with the Israeli government over a number of years to limit the amount of travel possibilities and allowing resources to get into Gaza. And so this all pretends to more right-wing activity that is shutting down the ability of Palestinians to move and taking more Palestinian land. And again, I think we're already on track this year to be the largest amount of Palestinians killed in the West Bank, a record previously broken last year, other than actual war times, I guess, with declared war times, where Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces, both policing forces and military forces.
Yeah, and the ability for intelligence services to collect, as if I was always under the assumption that they already collect information on people, on travelers coming into Palestine. But this, I think, will legitimize it, and it will serve to further demonize anti-Zionist organizing and organizers and supporters of the BDS movement, not just here in the United States, but around the world. So this is not only a further entrenchment of the right-wing fascist forces in Zionist apartheid Israel, but Palestine, but it's also a direct threat to us who are in solidarity with the Palestinian people. We have to remember that the right wing in every country is part of an international coordinated effort. They are organized. So these kinds of even legislative efforts don't happen in a vacuum of only that country. It's a coordinated effort that they absolutely plan to export to folks here. And to anybody anywhere else who are in support of Palestinian liberation.
The amount of Palestinian teens that have been killed and children that have been killed so far by the IDF, I think is close to 20, which is a startling, just a shocking amount of young people that have been murdered in their own lands, usually in their own homes and in defense of their own communities. And it shouldn't shock us at all that U.S. police forces train with these people. So when police here murder children, kill kids, like we've seen countless times, this is a practice that is sanctioned by, as you said, Jackie, these right-wing forces. Like anybody can get it. Anyone that stands in opposition to them, no matter how small or young, can be killed in the name of the Zionist movement in this apartheid state. It's horrific.
And none of it has stopped the U.S. from funding, from giving more military weaponry and supplies to Israel. So the lip service that the U.S. government plays or attempts to say around human rights concerns, It means nothing, because the United States continues to give more support to Israel than any other government in the world. And in fact, it's obvious, it's well known that the government of Israel would not even stand if it didn't get the resources it did from the United States in particular. And so people have to understand that these crimes are being done in the name of Americans who supply the weapons and the material base for the Israeli society, the settler colonial society, to continue to exist the way it does, and have the power it does over Palestinians.
Mm-hmm. And
How
Richie,
much?
So I found the story, or I got the story you just said.
Real quick. How much does the U.S. give every year to Israel for the Iron Dome defense? Is it $1 billion? Like just a flat billion, just for that? I mean, I know they give way more than $1 billion, but for the Iron Dome defense, isn't it just $1 billion? I say just, but isn't it 1 billion just for that?
let's see. Let me look real quick.
Because it's a lot of. I mean, we know it's a
Well,
lot of money.
I can't tell you from what the Iron Dome defense is all by itself, but Israel is the largest cumulative recipient of U.S. foreign aid. Until February 2020, the United States has provided Israel $150 billion in bilateral assistance.
That sounds like a lowball number. That sounds a little low.
It probably is
50 billion sounds
it probably is a little low because, in a government that always lies, and this government does always lie, they're certainly not going to tell us everything they give to Israel. That's just what they're comfortable in reporting.
Wow.
I am sure it's far more than that.
It says it says from 2011 to 2021, the United States contributed a total of 1.6 billion to the Iron Dome defense system.
Okay.
With another 1 billion approved by the U.S. Congress in 2022.
Couple of them squad members voted for that shit. A couple of them squad members voted for that shit. Shout out to Rashida Tlaib. Rashida Tlaib said, not me. Not on today. But the rest of them, shit. I don't know about the rest of them, but I know some of them did, but regardless. If you want to move along here, it's going to Jackson, where Jackson State University students are pleading for fixes to the campus water system as officials quietly seek funding. Why quietly though? why they gotta quietly seek funding, which is a kind of a odd way to put things. So this is coming from Mississippi Today. And it goes on to say, it says, while Jackson State University officials are quietly working to pull funding for improvements to the campus system, the campus water system, students continue to complain of inadequacies. And it goes on to say that, Jackson State University is in the oldest part of the city, but students themselves are experiencing very harsh conditions. It says that some of these old cast iron and lead lines that run under the university, they routinely bust, which can make the water smell foul or at times turn brown. It says in the winter, freezing temperatures have left students without heat because the system that the university relies upon is very faulty and very old. Now, and students have been having to rely upon bottled water for their water consumption. And it says these conditions make it more difficult for students to focus on the reason that they're at Jackson State. I mean, I'm certain it makes it more hard to focus, but hello, survival. I mean, how can students survive when the water doesn't work, or at times when it does work, doesn't sound as though it's fit for human consumption? And pick it up, Kamal. I'm sorry, because I'm getting a little.
Well, it says here one of the priorities of this session was a $17 million request for state funding for campus infrastructure. This was by the former president, Thomas Hudson, before he was placed on administrative leave. And it says before being placed on leave, the university had declined to comment on its efforts. His temporary replacement, Elaine Haynes Anthony, has said she will continue to support the university's legislative priorities. Concrete details from the lawmakers have been hard to come by. Now, some students say they want to know what exactly the university's administration has been doing to fix the problems on campus. Says not knowing only adds suspicion to where it's actually going. In other words, the money is going to some other places. I don't know, maybe salaries, maybe other big buildings, but obviously not in fixing the water. This is something that a junior from the university's quest for funds had said. Baker says it seems like the problems are never ending in her dorm. Hot water has returned to showers, however. Some residents' washing machines are broken. There's one plus side. Baker started at Jackson State in the fall of 2020 while pandemic restrictions were in place. Now she can at least spend more time with friends. And Jackson State is a public institution supported by the state of Mississippi. Tatiana Ross, a senior, said the university should not have to beg for state funding. Someone states it is not new. Jackson State started off as a school for Negro teachers. Ross said, it feels like the state government continues to attempt and disrupt the education of Black people. I believe that it all shows how oppressed African Americans remain in today's time. And so it just goes on to there, particularly talking about, again, that the university refuses to either expose or talk about or make clear where they seek funding from, how they seek to fix the problem. Hudson told students the first step to securing funding for a new water system on campus is to get more money for a study. Oh, God. It is a process similar to the one Jackson State undertook to get funding for a stadium feasibility study. A feasibility study looks at a range of factors to determine how possible a construction project is.
Hold on. So are they saying that Jackson State University officials did a study to figure out whether or not they could put a new stadium on campus, but have not yet conducted a study about how to upgrade the water system?
Yes, that's exactly what they're saying.
That's what.
In fact, when I lived in Jackson, I think at the time they were doing that study, and that was like almost a decade ago.
Wow.
For the stadium, and Jackson State, and it has continually purchased more land surrounding Jackson State. Similarly, they've done what most of these universities do, which is to knock down working class housing, housing for poor folks who lived in and around the campus to make more space for them to build more dorms. So they will do what you would consider to be the overt sort of sexy stuff, the stuff that you can have big shiny buildings, to show people the campus is modern, all that to attract people. But the thing that really matters is like, well, when I get on campus, this is a nice shiny building, but the water is coming out brown, right? The water has toxicities in it. The water can't be bathed in, the water can't be drunk in, the water doesn't even turn on, or impacts the basis of the heating system, impacts whether or not you can even have heat in the wintertime. So instead of that particular problem, they've attacked getting the big buildings. And of course, what folks have been talking about, the fact that the state itself punishes Jackson State or limits its funding to Jackson State because it is a Black university, just as in the same way it treats the capital because it's a Black city. The state of Mississippi gives resources to suburbs, which are mostly white, more than it gives to the city of Jackson, which are right next to it. So these are all racially comprised dilemmas in terms of how the state treats the city of Jackson and the institutions in Jackson, including Jackson State. But also, it sounds like obviously the administration itself has been far less interested in overtly fixing the problem than having quiet conversations with maybe the governor and other administrations on how to give some money, please, as opposed to making it a big public uproar that they're treating this university as a second-class university as opposed to a state-funded university system that should be funded completely.
Are there any other public universities in Jackson besides Jackson State?
No, I think the other universities in Jackson, I'm forgetting the name, but there's another historically Black Tougaloo is also in Jackson, which is another historically Black college, but it's a private college. But there are other in and around Jackson, of course, there are other state universities, including Mississippi State, which again has no problem with its water or funding.
Right. That was my question. Like, and I already knew the answer, but are all the universities experiencing these same water troubles as Jackson State? No, they aren't.
Not at all. I would be interested to know what the salaries for the administrator and the administrative, the leadership of the school. I would be interested to know how much they make, because if they're anything like Howard University, the administrator makes $1 million. And $1 million a year and some change. And this private military housing company called Corveus actually holds the contract to build housing on Howard's campus, and housing is terrible. It's, you know, mold, rat infested, roach infested, all of that, all that stuff. I would want to know who is contracted to take care of the infrastructure and the housing on Jackson, because I wouldn't be surprised if it's some private corporation that is doing exactly what Corveus is doing, providing the bare minimum and getting a boatload of money, which is, by the way, what Corveus does with the military. Military housing that they provide is trash. So it's been a successful business model for them, you know, providing substandard housing. So I would be really interested to find out those things about Jackson State, and I would love to enlighten the students about with that information.
Listen,
I
I
put the
think
picture back up really quick. I'm sorry, but I wanted folks to see, because I think I kind of skipped over it, that these are porta potties that are outside of the sports arena stadium for folks to use because of the issues with the plumbing. And so, due to the water issues, portable toilets are placed outside of Jackson State University's Lee Williams Athletic and Assembly Center in Jackson. So just wanted people to be clear that how extensive this issue is that they place porta potties outside for people to use, again, at right in front of this well-structured, fancy painted building, which can't, which cannot get the water crisis, which again, Jackson has been facing for literally decades, solved and fixed. And again, Jackson itself, to be clear, the city of Jackson, and of course, this is a state institution, so it's up to the state to fund it. But you know, the city of Jackson, I don't think anyone expects it alone with its own resources. This is a state issue, a problem that the state itself can solve, Mississippi can solve, and it's an issue that the federal government can step in and solve. And now that the federal government, I think, has put some resources towards fixing some of the water issues in Jackson, all of a sudden the state wants to create a commission in which it now has control over how those funds get spent. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear too.
That's it.
And I think the students of Jackson State, even the residents of Jackson, I think in Counselor, you can better apprise us of this, but I mean, isn't this grounds or potentially grounds for a class action lawsuit? I mean, this is a violation of these students' civil rights intentionally by the state of Mississippi, and by extension, the citizens of Jackson, the residents of Jackson, are also being denied their civil rights, their right to consume water free from lead and contaminants. The state is failing to provide these things. Is there any legal grounds? I know this is very broad, but I mean, do you think there is any legal grounds to take this to the courts to maybe force the hand of the state of Mississippi and maybe even the federal government to act with speed?
No. So, I mean, there's like similar to cops who have, let me give you my clear, short legal analysis. No. So that, you know, the states have, all states, of course, have certain protections around being sued for certain things. And so there could be a class action lawsuit that's meant to demonstrate the harm caused, which could be good for potentially making the state move, I assume, based on the shame. But Mississippi is just not shamed in terms of taking care of or supporting its Black citizenry. It never has been and never will be. So, so I think there are probably ongoing lawsuits in this area, but a lot of them will be blocked around the limited liability that states will have for sort of, you know, and obviously the bar for proving racial discrimination by the state is particularly high. It's not like a low bar. The Supreme Court has done its best over the years to make sure that discriminatory lawsuits are not just done you can't infer the type of a discrimination that you can obviously see by stats, by showing how resources are going to other places. You have to catch somebody on camera or in video or on record saying, I'm not giving these Black folks this because they're Black. I hate Black people. Instead, I'm going to take the state government's money and do this with it so that I don't have to do anything for the for the city of Jackson. Short of those kinds of overt acts of racism, it's usually a shame and blame game.
Interesting.
Guys, I gotta go. I mean, I'll be right back. But the dogs are tapping at the door, and I have to let them out. So I'll be back.
Let the dogs be
Well, just as you're doing that, this is perfect timing for the ear doctor to come back up.
Oh yes.
Look at that. Kim know a little something about breaks. He took the right time to what the dogs did. Thank goodness.
Like, I need to pee or something. I don't know.
Right. Hey, you know how in what is it, basketball, they form super teams and stuff like that, and in music they form super groups. I think there was like, what was it, Keith Sweat, LSG. What was it? Wasn't that a super group? Keith Sweat, Johnny Gill, and I need Kim back.
Sounds familiar.
Now Kim want to leave.
I know Kim.
my up to date.
If anybody would know, it would have been Kim. When we come back from the break, we can explore that topic more.
You're right. So what I'll do is I'm gonna go to a super group and talk about them real quick, right here, right now, on the Remix Morning Show. What's good, everybody? Welcome out to the Remix Morning Show. Make sure y'all hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. What I wanted to do is play a little music in the background as I talk about a super group. That's when you take a bunch of stars from other groups and put them into one. What super group am I talking about right here, right now, today? No other than Lucy Pearl. Lucy Pearl. That's right. We're talking about major super groups here. We're talking about Raphael Sadiq from Tony. We're talking about Don Robinson from In Vogue, Ali Shaheed Muhammad from A Tribe Called Quest. Guess what? They all got together in 1999 and formed Lucy Pearl. What happened is, pretty much Sadiq left Tony. The next year, Ali got contacted by him and Don Robinson. It was like, yo, let's put a group together. So they did. So in May 2000, they came out with Beyond Music. It was a self-titled album. And the lead single, as you hear, Dance Tonight, I Wanna. Oh, yeah. That's when that neo soul was really banging around that time. So that came out and hit the scene. And that was a pretty big one. The song also was nominated for Best R&B Performance by a Duo or Group for the Grammys. And they also came out and got a gold. They also came out with a song called Don't Mess With My Man. That was another banger right there. So they rocked out for a while, but then after a while, it was a little problems. So Dawn Robinson actually wound up leaving the group and got replaced by Joy, an artist out of Atlanta. So she got on with the group, and what was it, 2001. And after that, you know, the group wound up falling apart more and more, with some problems with Sadiq and Robinson and Muhammad. It was a little problems behind the scene, so they pretty much was like, nah, we can't do this no more. And matter of fact, Robinson was told about they picked up a new member on an interview with somebody else, not even by the group. So it was a little beef behind the scene, but thank y'all for these 2 songs that y'all came out with and banged us with, because y'all had one album, which is titled Lucy Pearl. Thank y'all for that. Other than that, let's get back to the Remix Morning crew. You know how we do, all right?
They let your mind was gone. You had your chance, and you lost a good man. I know, it's sad, thinking about what you had. If you was mine.
Yeah.
I know, they should have been bigger.
Yeah.
It should have
That
been
group should have
bigger.
been. Yeah.
Yes, but nothing can be as big as Raphael Sadiq's ego.
You already know.
And it doesn't be big as
Why
that.
you blaming Raphael? Somebody in the chat said it was Dawn's fault.
Mm-mm.
Why
I
is
think
it
there's
Raphael's fault?
there was enough blame to go around. I think there was enough blame to go around. They had a song called Rifle Love that I play still with some frequency. Oh man, it did. What a jam. I mean, talent. That's just a talented talented group, and I agree they totally should have been bigger. But
Yeah, actually, Dawn Robinson said that they couldn't come together because of Sadiq, which wound up making her lose her home back in the day because they were supposed to release the 1999 Lucy Pearl album, and he's like, nah. So
you gonna blame Sadiq for that? For her losing her house?
He's a Devo, maybe. Who knows?
I don't know. I mean, she was in Vogue. She should have had some money. She was in Vogue. She was in this group.
Well,
can't
I
blame
mean,
Raphael.
A lot of people in Vogue now. That money don't split.
Yeah.
But hold on. I mean, you only get money for doing shows. If you didn't write any of those songs, that residual money is not coming
there.
in.
And she also said there were some contract issues. She didn't read the contract. She had been friends with Sadiq since they were teenagers. So she knew him well and she trusted him. And she didn't read that contract that he had her hand in writing, and he undercut her a lot. So
that's right, Ricky. Ricky says, ask the members of In Vogue about Dawn.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I've heard that too, but when it comes,
two things can be true at once.
Yeah, true.
That's right.
True at once.
I know this has got nothing, but Dawn was fine though. Let me just put that out there.
Man, I was so in love with In Vogue.
I was like, yo, goddamn, no. Yeah.
Conjugate your verb properly is.
I haven't seen her in like 25 years since she lost her house. I don't know what she looks like now that she lost her house, but when she was putting out them R&B bangers,
she might have that vintage. She might have that vintage though, man. You know, get better in time.
Oh my gosh! In Vogue, you guys remember that?
You just.
What?
You just want to talk about another woman like that when I'm sitting right here?
I said historically. I was just historically.
He did.
I was like,
no! Wow!
I'm coming to DC. Right. I'm coming to DC.
Jackie is cute with that top on though. I ain't go front. My bad.
Tell him, Jackie. Stun on him, Jacqueline.
Calm down here, doctor. Calm down here, doctor.
My bad. All right, so I know we got some.
No, what was the supergroup you was trying to get though?
LSG. What was the name? It was Johnny Gill,
Levert, Sweat, and Gill. Yes,
right. Keep Sweat. Thank you. That was.
Did they have any hits?
Did they have hits? Missy Elliott did the remix to My Body. You are my body. See, we could do that. We could do. Oh my God, Your Body All Over My Body. You don't know that song?
Body all over my body, man.
That sounds familiar, but that's every Keith Sweat song. So I was like, yo, I can't distinguish this from that.
It is.
That is not the move. That would not put. No.
Oh, you babe.
Wait a minute, that was the supergroup? That wasn't just Keith Sweat by himself?
No, Levert, Sweat, Gill.
And what was it? Tank, Tyrese.
TGT.
They had a supergroup.
Wow.
They weren't too super. Yeah, no.
No, they weren't too super.
Like Johnny Gill just tried to jump in every band, though.
He
did. He joined
New Edition when Bobby Brown got kicked out.
Yeah, because
and
he's
elevated the group.
Elevated the group.
Yes. Can you stand the rain? Who wants to get fat? Who wants to get smacked? I'm gonna come. I'm gonna be on the first.
I'm with you. No, that's a classic. I'm with you. Can you stand the rain?
Violence.
Rub you
best ever.
Rub you the right way. My. Come on, man. Johnny. And he came out with Stacey Lattisaw from before that. Before New Edition.
Used to love Stacey.
Where do we go from here? Shout out to DC. DC's own Johnny Gill. DC's own Johnny Gill.
Singing all hard. Like he
put some respect
like his
on
life
Johnny,
depend on that song.
he do sing mad hard. Yo, he sweating Jerry curl juice all over the place. Mama. Take off your red dress. Don't let me start it, man. Listen, I'm out of here, man.
Johnny's a little overrated. He's a little overrated.
Whoa.
Hey.
High. Hey. Stop getting high on the job. Come on. What you talking about?
I'm saying Johnny's a little overrated.
Compared to whomst, my dear.
All the other singers of his generation.
You are high.
I mean, he got because he had the bass, he got the props. But he was like, he wanted to be like a Luther kind of singer, but he wasn't,
I'd say more Teddy Pendergrass.
More Teddy?
Yeah.
I think you're right. Mm-hmm. I think you're right. Yeah.
Come out. You got your people coming through still?
Why you
Yeah,
gonna ask me that on air? Wait for them to come. All the time, just like the rest of us, hoping they pop up soon. That's what I mean. There's no like the production value. Why would you ask me on the air? We got the chat right there. You can ask me in the private chat. Yo, is that 9 o'clock guest ready yet? It's like, I don't see him. Do you see him? I'm like, God damn.
I was wondering how much
I love
longer
how
I need
New
to.
Yorkers. I love how New Yorkers answer questions with questions. Is your guest here? Do you see my guest here?
see my guest? You see somebody else? Are you talking about another person?
Facts. You want to be smart? I can be smart too. Speaking of, you know what? Let me get up. I was just trying to stall so I could get it. You know, I didn't want to.
Is that what you're trying to do? You're trying to stall
Yeah,
for us?
you know, I was trying to stall, but I see we got somebody coming through right here on the Remix Morning Show. So I'll catch y'all next break. Peace.
Peace.
Hey, peace. Yeah, doctor.
So we're gonna run our little. You're gonna run our little intro since we talk about things on air. Run our little intro for our guests to come in, and then we're gonna introduce our guests. Bam. All right. So we got our guests coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. We're here with Burn It Down Kim Brown, Jackie Lukeman, and Kamal K. Franklin. I don't think we ran enough dough, just to put that out there. But we do have a special guest. All the BAP folks are going to go crazy once they see who the guest is. They're going to be very happy about this. So earlier in the week, we were talking about the issue of reproductive rights and abortion. And one of our great esteemed remixers was like, y'all should have this next guest on because y'all don't have enough information. They tried to be nice about it, but it was like, we just don't have enough information. And so it'd be good to have an expert coming on. So you about to say something here, doctor?
Your next guest is Jaleesa Jackson.
That was my role. I wanted to. Okay.
Good morning.
How you doing, Jaleesa?
I'm
Welcome,
doing
Jaleesa.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Can y'all hear me
There's a little bit of an echo.
okay? I'm gonna try to fix that.
That's better already. And the never have the light right behind you.
Kamal, shut
Yeah,
up.
that's better. That's better. Let me give you some tips.
You talk about production value and da 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 da. Here you
I
are.
don't know about that. I don't know about no production, but I do know that part. But really, So let me do a proper introduction for you, Jaleesa. So Jaleesa Jackson is a Black queer mother and interdisciplinary plenary cultural worker in Atlanta. They are the interim executive director of ARC Southeast, an abortion fund and reproductive justice organization in Atlanta, Georgia, serving Mississippi. They're housed here in Atlanta, but they're serving Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina. As a reproductive justice practitioner, Jaleesa is committed to the fullest development of oppressed people's collective power and self-determination, and their approach to building power is rooted in a people-centered human rights theory and practice. Jaleesa, thank you so much for joining us. Can Jaleesa hear us?
Yes. Can y'all hear me better now?
Yes, that's a lot better.
Oh no.
And I don't know if I'm freezing or if you're freezing.
Oh.
Are you able to hear us, Jaleesa?
She just waved.
Can you all hear me?
We can hear you, but you're no longer on camera.
We lost your picture.
Okay. I'm gonna try to fix that. Apologies. I don't know what's going on with my internet. But can you all hear me now?
It is.
Yes, I'm just like, this is convenient timing.
Pro be all over this. Yes.
Right, exactly. They're trying to talk about something meaningful per usual. Let's interfere. But thank y'all for having me. Good morning. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for making some time. We appreciate it because, we do need lots of education around this issue of reproductive justice, especially in this current day in age. So tell us what we need to know, baby girl. Tell us the things that we do not know that we absolutely need to know about the issue of reproductive justice and access to abortion care in the post-Dobbs world that we live in.
Yes, a very important question and one of my favorites. I like talking about reproductive justice by first grounding it in sort of the origins of the framework, which came about in 1994. It's when 12 Black women, after attending a conference in Cairo, gathered in Chicago, Illinois, and articulated the framework for the first time. The framework was intentionally easy to digest, right? I can just share it now for everyone. Reproductive justice, it's primarily articulated by 4 tenets. The human right to have a child and to determine how we want to do that, right? Like if we want to have a home birth, then we should be able to have a home birth. To have access to care so that we can have prenatal care. The right to not have a child and the options for ending an unwanted or unplanned pregnancy, right? And the third tenet's actually my favorite, the human right to raise our children in healthy and sustainable communities without the fear or the threat of violence from individuals or the state. I think that tenet is so capacious, and that's when we really see the reproductive justice addressing multiple intersections, right? The fourth is the right to bodily autonomy, right? The self-determination or bodily sovereignty. And so reproductive justice is also situated in the human rights framework. Its originators were informed by the United Nations Human Rights Framework. And so it's a framework that also speaks to environmental issues, that speaks to violence, that speaks to housing, right? And so it's a framework that really addresses the multiplicity of our lives and the issues that our communities are facing, because we know that they're facing so many varying issues. So while the organization that I'm at right now is an abortion fund and identifies, as a reproductive justice framework, we recognize that abortion is intimately connected to the other issues that our callers that we serve are facing. Our callers are primarily Black people. Over 80% of them are Black people. Over 80% of them are already parents, right? And so they're already contending with state violence and safety and issues of, accessible food and things of that nature. And the majority of them are also uninsured or underinsured, right? And so we can kind of see the thread there to issues of economic exploitation and workers' rights, right? And so we really try to speak to those in clear ways, but in ways that I think could be clearer. So I'm glad that y'all invited me here to kind of share a little bit more.
So during this time period that I think as Kim was getting at, where we've seen the reversal or the taking away of the national protection of women's rights to choose whether or not to carry a child to term or not, we've had this time period where, particularly in southern states, but not exclusively, abortion rights have been restricted, if not outright termed illegal, where now there's a lot of pressure being put on pharmacies to not even sell abortion pills or to let folks terminate their pregnancies. For you as somebody who's on the ground and working with people in the day-to-day, how have you seen this actually impact women in terms of the choices for reproductive health and justice?
Yeah, we've seen firsthand the sort of catastrophic reverberations of the overturn of Roe, which is just a continuation of state violence by the United States. As you mentioned, I'm here in Georgia, where we have a 6-week ban in place, right? And in 2019, we saw these abortion bans sweep the country, and specifically the Southeast, well, the South, it just generally. And we recognize that there was a collective strategy from our opposition to really restrict options for people. Organizations like ARC exist because barriers have already existed for communities like Black communities as it relates to accessing abortion care. ARC was founded in 2015, right, which speaks to, excuse me, an ongoing issue. But since the overturn of Roe, the real-time implications have been really difficult for folks on the ground, because there's a lot of misinformation intentionally, right? Is abortion legal or is it not? can I share information about where to access care or can I not? Can I be criminalized for that or penalized for that? And what we're seeing is that people have to travel further and further away from their home communities to access care. Now, if someone doesn't have access to PTO, cannot just easily request days off from work, which could mean like less food on the table or not enough money to cover rent. This is a huge barrier for people that are already experiencing economic exploitation. And so we've seen people needing to travel longer distances. Organizations like the one I currently work for help people close the gap by, supporting them with flights, hotel, food, coordinating childcare. But it's much more costly to access care. The 6-week ban means that most people don't even know that they're pregnant, right, by the time that abortion care is out of reach. And so that's something that folks don't know when they think, well, you have up to 6 weeks to access care. As I have 2 children, as someone who has 2 children, the first time I was pregnant, I did not know I was pregnant until 8 weeks. And so it really pushes it further out of reach for folks, especially when we think about, the lack of comprehensive sex education. So people can't even really intimately know their bodies and track their ovulation cycles and things of that nature. And so, alongside, the ongoing removal of important curriculum from school. So yeah, the sort of realities on the ground is that it's much more costly, and that means that it pushes care completely out of reach. Bringing a child into this world is a lifelong decision that people have to make. It requires a lifelong commitment. Speaking from personal experience, it is incredibly costly. So forcing folks to carry pregnancies to term, forcing people into parenthood before they're ready, it also harms young people, right? And we know that in this country, there's not a deep valuing of young people. And so I think the impacts are multi-generational, they're catastrophic, and they're also life-threatening when we think about the real risk of carrying a child and going through the labor and delivery process, right? I have a 15-month-old running around upstairs right now, and I had them at Emory Midtown. And many of us have seen the video of the nurses from Emory Midtown with the icks that were very much racist. And so when we think about that, and I'm just reflecting on my experience there's real costs, and it sometimes costing us our lives when we don't get to sort of have access to self-determination and access to care that can allow us that level of sovereignty, at least in our bodies.
Jaleesa, let me just put this right on the table, because there is always a conversation among, excuse me, the I guess radical Black folks about the role of abortion in our liberation struggle, and it's some of us understand that it is a reproductive and human rights issue, just like the right to raise a child. I'm so glad you said that. The right to raise your children in a healthy environment. And when you realize that you are not able to do that, you should also have the right to make a decision to do whatever is best for you, right? But some of us do view abortion as like, a tool of genocide that we African descended people are too supportive of. And then there are all these weird statistics out there about, there are more Black babies aborted than there are born, and that's not even true. That is just literally not true, y'all.
Right.
Abortion rates have been falling for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Decades. Abortion is
Mm-hmm.
just not this wild.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but how do you respond to those kinds of comments where some of us seem to be very supportive of Black women's right to have quality health care, to have our lives protected in childbirth, but stop that support of human rights at allowing Black women to make the decision for what to do to control our own reproduction, basically.
Yeah, that's a really important question, and some question that the reproductive justice movement has been contending with for a long time, being a movement that was founded by Black women, right? And one of the ways that I think the movement has addressed this historically is by sharing those very facts, that abortion has been on the decline, and that it is safe. I also think there's a lot of misinformation about abortion, just the realities about it. As I mentioned, it's already been inaccessible for Black communities. And so it's been intentionally placed out of reach. Folks with access to money have always been able to access care, which is why you see a lot of folks with access to wealth that might be in alignment with abortion, like the repression of abortion access. The best way, I mean, these conversations tend to go in a circle for me, but when I talk to people about consent and coercion and connect it to the way that the state is coercive and tries to surveil us, tries to control our decision making, tries to control our bodies and controls our communities through reproductive technologies. And I think also connecting it to like historical history, right? Like what we know is that Black and Indigenous communities have always had abortions. We've always had ways to access self-determination and control our reproductive capacities from a historical perspective. And so oftentimes those conversations or those arguments are rooted in a very US centric way of thinking, in my opinion, right? Like that we weren't actively figuring out ways to terminate pregnancies prior to abortion being sort of a mainstream issue in the United States. I think also when we look internationally at the ways that the United States tries to control populations abroad, it helps us understand more deeply the connections between the way that religious fundamentalism situates and talks about abortion and the way that they try to control populations abroad. And so I think we can just see connections there, and that can be helpful sometimes. And I like to just share a couple examples to think about the ways that the United States and the talking points of our opposition are the same when we think about coercion, when we think about surveillance, when we think about criminalization. But just for thinking about how the United States exports reproductive oppression abroad, we can think about the global gag rule and the prohibition of following even or sharing even information about abortion abroad and attaching that to aid, right? Aid packages. We can think about foundations like the Gates Foundation, which promised to facilitate access to contraceptive information for 120 million from the poorest countries by 2020. And so if we think about the ways that the state is trying to control populations, removing abortion access to ensure that there is a class of people to continue to exploit, recognizing that people already do not have access to care to raise those children, right? We have, even in Georgia, for example, 159 counties, less than half of them have access to OBGYN, right? And so they know that the removal of abortion care and the talking points of Black genocide is really seductive to creating fissures in our community. And so I think by connecting the dots, and that's something that I try to do in my work, both like inside my organization, I am at a 501c3 nonprofit, to be clear, but even outside of that, like the conversations that we're having to help people have a deeper understanding of how the state is really savvy in creating narratives that are digestible to people to create these fissures and to promote misinformation.
So we've already seen all of these extremely restrictive abortion laws pass right after the Supreme Court decision, because a lot of these states had trigger laws that they had passed years ago with these personhood, clauses that recognize zygotes, basically fertilized eggs, as having the same rights as people. The story that Kamau and I spoke about, was this yesterday or Tuesday, coming out of South Carolina, where 21 South Carolina state legislatures have signed on or co-sponsored a bill that would give the death penalty potentially to people who are seeking abortion services by designating that act as a homicide because of the personhood status of the fertilized egg. And then there is a case coming out of Texas that I'm sure you're familiar with that is attempting to even further criminalize medical abortions with the use of the medicine. Can you help me? Is it misoprostol?
Yes, mifepristone. Yes, and actually, the ruling is anticipated to come down today. And so It's gonna be
Talk
a
to us.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like we said, like I said, when we saw the abortion ban sweep the South in 2019, a lot of these state legislatures introduced multiple legislation that specifically targeted abortion. In Georgia, it was House Bill 41 and 456. 481 was a 6-week ban. 456 was the trigger ban, right? And so whether they had a backup plan if one were to fail, right? And House Bill 41 was challenged in Georgia. And so what we know is that they will go to the furthest extent to completely remove our abilities to control our reproduction. And so, yes, there is the federal case with mifepristone to push that out of reach. We've already seen Walgreens say that they will not administer it to their patients. And so we are seeing where medical providers are committed to quote unquote doing no harm, where we see that's not always true, right? And so, you know, we also see a case in South Carolina where someone self-managed their abortion prior to the overturn of Roe, but South Carolina is one of the few states in the United States that makes self-managed abortion illegal. And so I think one of the things that I'm concerned about, I'm sorry about these notifications y'all hear. One of the things I'm concerned about is our lack of connecting the dots between abortion access and criminalization, and surveillance, reproductive surveillance, right? And our unwillingness to like really stand on the demand of abolition in our movement is something that I feel is really important. If we recognize that the U.S. Supreme Court has always been very malleable, right? Has already determined us non-human in ways, when we think about it historically, the function of it, when we think about what possibilities really exist from a legislative perspective, there's always like this hyper focus on policy in our work. And so I'm curious about that connection. And that's why we, last week, ARC released a statement of solidarity with this movement to stop Cop City, because we are really trying to call our community, our movement to really respond to repression via policing, and to connect the policing that we see, the increase in policing in our communities, to what we see happening with increased militarization internationally. And so I think that's what Roe has illuminated. Folks in the RJ movement have always said Roe is going to fall. We have been talking about this for a long time. Right? Those of us who have already existed outside of legality and necessarily had to figure out access in ways that the state failed folks. But I really am curious about that and see that as the sort of the mandate after we see the overturn of Roe. And so that's just the kind of through line that I see there. I don't know if I really answered your question, but.
A quick follow-up question on that line was, we semi-joked about the surveillance tactics that we could see in the future, right? Like someone makes a social media post and says something about their period or whatever, and then all of a sudden there's some follow-up to it, or something like that's connected to the online world, and again someone said something, and then all of a sudden they're getting calls or visits or inquiries or whatever. Like when you talk about the surveillance, what about a surveillance regiment that could happen or maybe is happening now that sort of scares you the most or worries you the most?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a number of period tracking apps that people use to track their periods, right? Seems harmless. I get it. It's hard to like mark the days and remember the things. But that information can be accessible, can be made accessible. There's information that people don't necessarily think, especially in the digital age, that can be subpoenaed and accessed by the police. There have been instances where Facebook messages have been utilized to criminalize folks who have access to abortion. And so this is not even like it seems. So it seems like a very distant or far-fetched thing, but it's already happening. People are already being surveillanced, and so from the abortion space, we have always been like very proactive about security, but I want to encourage people to also think about what information they're sharing in DMs, in text messages, right? What information you're sharing in posts on Zoom, right? I want people to think about that via email. Are you using Gmail, right? How are you protecting yourself? And there are organizations like the Digital Defense Fund that partner with RJ orgs and individuals and can do trainings to help people sort of increase their protocol as it relates to digital security, because that is a method that our opposition uses to incriminate folks. And so this is not just an alarmist perspective. From the ground, I can guarantee and I can verify that this is already happening and people are already being criminalized in those ways, through those means.
Jaleesa, how do you situate this issue and the need to focus on the reproductive rights and reproductive justice part of this issue in this overall fight to end capitalism? Because I really see this as like this fight is an extension of we women fighting back against this capitalist need to continue to marginalize women and keep us in an unpaid labor workforce kind of, you know, that's how I kind of see this. So that's why I kind of look at these conversations about, you know, Margaret Sanger as if she created abortion. Jesus Christ. You know, eugenics and genocide. And that's why I kind of look at those conversations as like, these are distractions from this bigger issue. But that's my editorializing. As someone who is actively in this issue, how do you frame this fight in the fight against capitalism?
Yeah, that's a really important question. And there was a book I read that started one time with a question around who cleans the world, or, you know, who makes possible the it was like the girl bosses that sit behind the desk at work, who makes possible for them to do their work in the world, and to really think about like domestic workers and what they make possible for folks in various positions. Um, and so I think when we really orient ourselves to the people that reproductive justice, the framework was created for, in their sort of open letter that the founding mothers put in, I think it was the Washington Post, they spoke to reproductive justice being a life or death issue for Black women. We've since extended that to people of marginalized genders or birthing people. And that also helps us connect the issue to capitalism. But I think when we really think about the material realities of the people that an ARC Southeast serves, right? Who are those people? What are their day-to-day lives like? What do they care about? What issues are they contending with? I think it just for me, it comes down to what those material realities are. And that helps me talk about the issue and have that through line to the issue of capitalism. It also, like I said earlier, around the removal of abortion access to ensure an exploitable class of people. If people are already existing, you know, navigating economic exploitation, you know, Atlanta has the highest levels of income inequality in the country, I think, and that's a statistic that comes out every single year. And you know, I was once a person who worked a minimum wage job here in Atlanta, and from that experience, that deeply informs the sort of connection to capitalism and my understanding of how that's impacting people. It's through that experience. And so I think talking about people's material realities, I think talking about this really savvy system, and, you know, Patricia O'Connell calls it the matrix of domination, right? Or the colonial matrix of power, if we think about it from a decolonial perspective. And so it's through connecting the ways that racism, sexism, capitalism operate in a very savvy way to continue exploitation for people. I think it's also in deeply understanding ourselves as colonized subjects in the United States. And it's through connecting to, thinking about reproductive imperialism or US imperialism that we're better able to understand the sort of primary contradictions here. And I think there's so many pathways to addressing the way that capitalism steals from us, steals our lives, steals our children, steals possibilities from us. And so reproductive justice is one way. But if we're not speaking specifically to capitalist exploitation, beyond just identifying as anti-capitalist, which is a trend that I see in our movement, and that's just an internal criticism that I have, beyond just being anti-capitalist, right? Like, what are we saying? What I identify as a socialist, right? And so what are we saying when we say we're anti-capitalist, and how are we clearly articulating the primary contradictions to our community? And if the sort of issues that are focused on, right, we at ARC, we have a peer-to-peer support group, and that's one of the ways that we can tap in with folks and hear directly from them around, about what they are dealing with, right? These are people that have previously been supported through our Healthline, in a way that we can continuously connect them to resources. But one of the things I admire about CNB is the way that y'all are super relational in y'all's approach to work, the door-to-door approach to y'all's work. And so that interpersonal component to bringing people along and connecting the issues is something that I think is useful.
Jaleesa, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kamau.
Oh no, I was going to. We have another guest waiting. You could, if you want to ask a quick question and a quick response, then we can end.
Yeah. Let me ask you this quick question, Jaleesa, because obviously, this is all about political education. And on my show several weeks ago, I did a story about, I believe, a Black Mississippi teen who survived a sexual assault and was pregnant by that sexual assault. And she had a very supportive family whom tried to get her abortion services in her state, but obviously she had already passed the date, I suppose, the 8 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever the statute there is in Mississippi. And they had to go all the way to Illinois. It was like a $2,500 round trip between accommodations and actually paying for the service itself. And the one thing that the mother said about her teen, her pregnant teen who became pregnant by sexual assault, it really broke my heart, is that they didn't even know that the abortion ban had passed in Mississippi. Right. And for so many people, especially Black people who can become pregnant, most of the Black people in America live in the South, right? And this is where most of these laws have taken place. So talk to us about the importance and the methods of political education to our people who may not even be aware that they have had their abortion rights taken away as of now, and the limitations about seeking care beyond that point once they find out.
Right. And that actually, unironically, right, that these abortion bans swept the South, and that's where Black people are concentrated. Mississippi actually has a full out ban. You cannot access abortion in the state of Mississippi. And like I said, because of misinformation and the state by state variation and abortion restrictions, it's very confusing to people. And so there are a lot of people that either do not know that abortion is illegal in Mississippi or think that abortion is illegal in the entire United States. And that's through the misinformation and fear mongering of the opposition. And so, that is some of those hidden costs. The longer someone has to wait, right? And these quote unquote access states, people are having to schedule appointments out further because they're receiving the influx of patients that need to travel out of the region and into their region for care. The further out they have to schedule their appointments, the more expensive the appointment becomes, right? And sometimes people have to change their appointments last minute. Airline tickets prices are bananas right now. I don't know if you've seen them. So it has a lot of implications for people, especially those who are in rural communities that do not have access to regular OBGYN care. And we actually partner with organizations on the ground in Mississippi. So Mississippi Reproductive Freedom Fund is one that's important to tap in with. But on the point of political education at ARC, one of the things I started as interim about a week before Roe was overturned. One of the things that I implemented was regular political education. And these are for folks that are already operating in the day, right? But like I said, I think it's important that we sort of educate ourselves about the issues that communities are contending with, that we are contending with, so that we're able to be in conversation with community. So we're able to do political education with community. And so that's something that we've built in at ARC. This is something that I also do outside of ARC through the Decolonial Feminist Collective. We hold monthly political education sessions that are free, that are virtual. And this month we have a zine making workshop with some, connected political education readings. And so, yeah, political education is critical because what I've seen is sort of this ideological underdevelopment, right? And so with the removal of important subjects at school and with the sort of like de-radicalizing and whitewashing of the terms that we use, right? Like I said, the state is really savvy. We have to make sure that we're sharpening our analysis so that we can respond in a way that's not always reactionary and so that we can be strategic. So we can really transform our current conditions.
So I want to thank you so much for coming on. We want to have you on again, talk about this and other matters. Maybe leaving a little co-host duty. But we'll talk
That would be nice. Thank y'all for having me. I appreciate y'all making space for this conversation.
Thank you so much for your expertise and for your work, Jaleesa. We appreciate it. Real quick, the name of the organization so we can send y'all some bucks.
Yes, ARC-Southeast, and the ARC stands for Access Reproductive Care Southeast. So tap in with us. We want to connect with you.
Perfect.
All right, y'all, let's take a quick short break and come back with our next guest, who I think Jackie will introduce when we come back.
Thank you so much. My warmest greetings to the people. My warmest greetings to the people. It is a great privilege to be participating in this historic. All the best to you all the best to you as we strive for a world where we all can live abundant, peaceful, and dignified life. That's right. Welcome out to the Remix Morning Show as we take this quick break and get you right back to the Remix Morning crew right here on Black Power Media. Let's go, y'all.
People got the strip neck and stick them up in the air. Wasn't lies when he told you wasn't nothing fair. Something don't feel right out here.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ear Doctor with the Paul Robeson. Go ahead. Go ahead, son. Go ahead. That's
Please not give him compliments.
Was that one of them streams of thoughts? The mixtape that Black Thought do?
No, that was off his. I forget which name of the album was. This one, I think, the Tipping Point. Yeah, it was the Tipping Point album.
The rest.
Well, that's what it is. I know we got a dope guest coming through, so let me move on out the way. Stage left even.
Stage left even.
All right, y'all. Let's get ready to talk about a date we have this Saturday that I hope you will be joining me with. I'm so excited for our next guest, so let's get to it. Welcome back to the Remix Morning Show. Thanks for hanging in with us, ladies and gentlemen. And I am so excited and happy to introduce one of my favorite people, one of our favorite guests on By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik, from the People's Forum, Claudia de la Cruz. Claudia, thank you so much for joining us today. We've got a date Saturday, sis.
Yes, we do. I'm so excited to be here. I love y'all. My morning show, my favorite morning show.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Claudia.
And your favorite host
No,
right here.
no, no.
All three of you are my favorite. And back,
Oh.
the ear doctor, that Paul Robeson, I gotta say,
Don't give
I
him any
love Paul
So
credit.
Robeson.
We don't like that.
So
Don't give him-
diplomatic.
You can say Kamal's your least favorite. That's okay. That's okay.
All I
Out
gotta
of your
say
favorites,
is,
he's the least favorite.
I mean, I love Atlanta. I love what he's doing out there. Community
All
builders
right.
are dope. Y'all are doing a great job. So I can't say he's the least favorite. I'm sorry.
Oh,
You are all my favorites.
thank you,
Well, we
Claudia.
appreciate you and the work that you do. And for people who are not aware, because I never assumed that everybody knows what we all do when we're not, visible on the screen. What is the People's Forum? What do you all do, and why is this something that everybody really should know about?
Well, we focus a lot on political education. I noticed Jaleesa, the previous speaker, was talking about political education. We understand political education to be pivotal for movement, not only in terms of theorizing or just accumulating knowledge, but how do we understand the world so that we can politically intervene in the world and transform it? And so the space is a political education space, is a cultural space. We understand that culture is key, and very much central to our movement work. And we try to uplift political education and culture that is for the people, by the people. And it has transformed into theory in a lot of socialist projects and revolutions. And so we try to put forth values that are humanistic values, values that put people over profit. We have not only a local reach, we have a national and international reach. We belong to a network of other organizations, over 200 organizations and political parties that is called the International People's Assembly. So we do a lot of internationalist work because we understand that solidarity and people-to-people diplomacy is necessary in order for us to be able to build the world that we need. And so we hold seminars, book talks, concerts. We have long and short courses, and we do a lot of building with organizations that objectively do work with the working class and poor of the United States. And so we're very proud and happy of the space that we've created together with hundreds of organizations that are in New York City, but also worldwide. So that's who we are.
That's fantastic. And I cannot believe that I have not attended a People's Forum event yet, but that is going to change.
Jackie!
I know things have been a little bit nuts for me.
I know.
But yeah, after hopefully June, things will be a little more even keeled and I'll be able to travel a little bit more. But yeah, we do have a date Saturday. And tell us about Saturday. Tell us about this March 18th Answer Coalition sponsored 200 in 200 organization, it's 200 plus organizations,
Yeah.
organization endorsed event on Saturday. Why are you going to be there? What's going on?
I mean, this weekend is the 20th anniversary of the criminal U.S. invasion of Iraq. And I think, it's important for us to reclaim the streets and recover our memory. We're in the verge of, escalating. And when I say we, I mean the U.S. government. Obviously, that's not us. That's not the people. But the United States is escalating and instigating the continuation of conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And we understand that, there's the manufacturing of consent that has been happening, which is very historically patterned in the U.S. history, to get people to justify and people to think that the United States is actually acting on behalf of the masses and intervening across the world. And so we want to reclaim the streets. We want to recover the memory. We want to make sure that people understand that the U.S. economic warfare, that the U.S. War machine has never been something that the people of the United States have ever benefited from, and no one around the world has ever benefited from. One of the key questions that I keep talking with people through is, when has the U.S. in all its history intervened benevolently in any affairs or conflicts in the world? When have they ever done that? And we can rest assured, and is historical, it is a historical fact that the United States of America has intervened to occupy, to wage war, to impose misery in the rest of the world, to enslave the rest of the world. And so this escalation that the US is pushing with this conflict, it is not about the people in Ukraine. The Ukraine is the battlefield for an imperialist war, and we need to understand it in that way. For the US interests to continue to destabilize Russia and move towards China. And we need to dismantle the narratives that have been created that, again, are part of a pattern to justify the war machine of the United States of America. They have media conglomerates to justify and manufacture consent and tell us, internally, that we and our deficiencies as the working class is what doesn't allow us to have jobs, doesn't allow us to have homes, doesn't allow us to have food. And that's a lie. It's capitalism, it's the economic system that doesn't allow us to live full, dignified lives. And in the same way that they lie about the root of our conditions, they lie about the roots and reasons for this war. I mean, you have a US military budget that is over $900 billion annually, $900 billion that could go into many other things. This budget is greater than the next 20 countries combined military spending, 3 times greater than all the 29 NATO countries combined. Military spending, we know, is larger than all the other items in the federal discretionary budget. And we're talking about housing, healthcare, transportation, education, social security. And so this is the story. These are the facts. From Guatemala in 1954 to Vietnam in 1968 to Iraq in 2003. It's never been about democracy. It's never been about freedom. It's never been about human rights. We need to remember Guantanamo and the atrocities that US soldiers were doing against people, the violations that were happening and taking place. And even though you don't have US soldiers fighting yet, we need to take into consideration that internally, the United States, it's building the conditions, it's justifying this war so that it is our kids that go fight. It is our people that die. And so the United States internationally is in the decline in terms of its hegemony. Economically, politically, ideologically, even people are coming to understand that the United States has built a unipolar world, a world that it's only for and by the US. And they're thinking and moving to multipolarity, which is having multiple powers. The United States doesn't want that. There was a declaration that folks should look into. I can share the link with you all, but there was a declaration that came post 1992, post the fall of the Soviet Union, which is a declaration of defense of the United States. And it speaks about they're not having any other power, especially where the USSR was, rise again. Like, it is policy for the US defense work to not allow the rise of another superpower. And when you talk about Iraq, what did Iraq mean to that region of the world? When you're talking about Syria, what did it mean? What did Libya mean to that region? What does Russia mean? I mean, at some point, Russia wanted to join NATO and they said no. Right? And so when Russia said, you're not bringing your NATO forces close to us, and it launched its defense, because that's what's happening, then they moved to escalate. And so we need to have a clear understanding, and we do, as working class people, we do understand what the US government is capable of. The US government is capable of bombing the Move family. The US government is capable of building COINTELPRO. The US government is capable of persecuting and killing activists and organizers. They're capable of destroying the forest and building Cop City. I mean, they are capable of instructing other police and military forces across the globe to kill their own people. And so we know what the US government is capable of doing. So we cannot fall into the traps of thinking that, you know, when they say we're doing this for democracy, we're doing this to defend the human rights of people in Ukraine, they're actually telling us the truth this time. Because since the creation of this nation, it's nothing but lies to drive us to a war that doesn't benefit the people.
You know, 20 years ago. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go.
You know, 20 years ago, Claudia, you know, millions of people were out in the streets, not only in this country, but really around the world, because we could very clearly see that drumbeat leading up to the invasion of Iraq and then eventually Afghanistan. I mean, I don't think that we've seen a protest movement that large and sustained, maybe even since. What do you think were the takeaways, the lessons learned? Because I think, Jacqueline, was it earlier this week, you know, you were talking about, you know, people who protested during that time against the inevitable invasion of Iraq are looking back at that time as maybe perhaps a failure, because the goal didn't get achieved of not getting the US military involved. And I don't even think there was anything even us millions could have done to even stop that, because clearly they went on the so-called faulty intelligence, read outright lies about what Iraq had and what they did not have. What were the takeaways that we can use to fuel this current movement, this current anti-war movement from the protest movements against the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan?
I mean, I think that there's a lot of things that we could look at, and there's actually a really good documentary or short documentary that Abby Martin from Empire Files put out on the lessons of the Iraq War. There's again the use of the media and the formation of a narrative that justifies this. I think as a movement, there was a lot of conversations around peace, but we need to talk about anti-imperialism. And how does anti-imperialism connect to the conditions of the working class in the United States? It's also something that Jaleesa spoke about. How do we make these connections in a way that we make it make sense for the ordinary working class person? Where we understand not only that there is war being waged across the seas, but there is war being waged against working class people here. We need to do a better job at deepening the class consciousness of the masses. We need to do a better job at making these connections, at connecting, and I'll mention it again because it's huge and a lot of people are talking about it. Cop City. How do we connect Cop City to the militarism that takes place, to the training that is received across the continent and across the world by US, police departments that are teaching how to kill working class people, primarily indigenous, Black and brown people, poor people. And so we need to be able to make those connections. How does this war in Ukraine impact, food shortages in the rest of the world?
Right.
It does. There's been a huge impact already. We're in a huge moment of inflation. So that's a huge lesson. How do we not only talk against a war that's happening out there? For as long as it's out there, people are going to say it's out there, and we're not even seeing our people die. We need to be able to bring it home and make it make sense for the working ordinary class person. I also feel like there needs to be more conversations and more organizing that is across sectors of work. It cannot only be an anti-war movement. The anti-war movement needs to be fed by organizations doing anti-police brutality work, by organizations doing, displacement work, by organizations doing work around healthcare. Again, going back to making the connections, but these organizations that are already in movement, that are already in motion, that are already struggling to be able to advance the working class issues, need to see themselves as part of an anti-war movement, because ultimately the biggest war that is being waged is against working class and poor people.
I was going to ask real quick about sort of going back to the Iraq War itself. And folks I think we all talk about some of the diminished power of the United States and the United States shift, let's say, to Asia in terms of containment of China. But even with that, the United States still has massive amount of military hardware bases and influence in the Middle East. And can you talk a little bit about what's happening in Iraq currently that still gives us cause for concern around U.S. imperialism? It's like I know most of the troops have left, but there's still troop involvement and U.S. Imperialism happening in the Middle East. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Of course. I mean, they destroyed Iraq. They destabilized Iraq. They extracted from Iraq. And although they say that they left, they left chaos in Iraq. And what that has meant in the rest of the region, again, is a weakening that will take decades, if not a century, to be able to recover from. And contracts are still there, contractors are still there. And so these are things that we need to take into consideration, that when the United States steps foot into any of these spaces, they really do create chaos that is very difficult to overturn in 10 years, in 15 years. And there's no reparation for any of these countries. So people are left with nothing, and unfortunately with a very, very little possibility of rebuilding. And so the power that Iraq won't be for a long, long, long time in that region.
So this Saturday, you will find myself, Claudia de la Cruz, a whole bunch of other people at the White House at 1:00 p.m. We'll be occupying Lafayette Square Park starting at 1:00. The rally begins at 1. There will be a march from the White House to, I believe, New York Avenue Presbyterian Church, where there will be an incredible teach-in. Black Alliance for Peace will be there. Party for Socialism and Liberation. This is an Answer Coalition sponsored event. And for people who do not know what the word answer means, it is an acronym for Act Now to Stop War and End Racism. If you want to attend this event in Washington, D.C., you can do that. You can hop a bus that the Answer Coalition has coordinated in many cities. Hope to see you there. I'm sure it'll be live streamed somewhere. Very, very excited for this. Very excited to share some space with Claudia. And honestly, I look at this as Claudia, as a moment to revive.
That's right.
The anti-war movement and to build the anti-imperialist movement that the working class and poor masses need, and to connect our struggles with those struggles around the world.
That's right. I mean, the demands are peace in Ukraine, negotiations, not escalation, abolish NATO, abolish AFRICOM, abolish the Southern Command, end U.S. militarism and sanctions on Syria and Cuba and Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Iran, and the many other countries that the U.S. has been economically strangling. Fund people's needs, not the war machine. No war against China. End U.S. raid to racist apartheid in Israel, like on occupied Palestine by Israel. U.S. hands of Haiti. I mean, there's so many things, because the list of U.S. crimes around the world are so long. And so if we are people of consciousness, if we are people that believe in advancing working class and poor people's agenda, we should definitely be there in this Saturday.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, Claudia. And I think you took us out.
Thank you so much
Right.
for inviting me. I'm always happy to be with y'all. Y'all are family.
Oh, thank you, Claudia.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. We're looking for that host too, the little host action. You know what I'm saying? New show, the Claudia de la Cruz show. You're like, I did not mix that up. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
We'll talk. Your favorite host, we'll talk.
Okay. We'll have that conversation.
So thank y'all. Let's do that. Thank y'all for joining us this week. This is the end of our week for the Remix Morning Show. Next week we're gonna be hitting y'all up for cash because next week pay week. What do we got?
This week
I'm
is
still hitting
pay
y'all up
week.
for
It's
cash.
it's Friday.
Oh,
This
my
week
bad.
is pay
I
week,
did a
sir.
terrible job of hitting y'all up. But anyway,
Oh.
everybody enjoy themselves. We got some upcoming shows. I assume tomorrow, Earn Your Liberations will be coming on. Burn It Down with Kim Brown will be coming on. Are we going to get a Jackie Lukman?
Yes, indeed. Black economically
Sure.
speaking, you know we're gonna talk about that run on them banks. Yes, we
Ooh.
are.
Let's get it. Let's get it.
And
Well,
Burn
thank
It
you
Down,
guys.
what are we going to do on your show coming up?
Mm.
No, you don't know? Well,
No,
you know what?
my show's Friday. My show is tomorrow, mañana.
I know. That's
So
what
I
I
have
said.
some
What,
time.
so what? You still figuring it out? We got time.
I'm
We'll promote it.
absolutely, yes, still figuring it
Mhm.
out, still putting some stories together, trying to figure out, it's hard to find good news. Jackie, I'm sure you struggle with this as well. Like I do try to look for good news and I don't really find it. So I mean,
Now
Let's
it's all
talk about the
doom
bad
and gloom, and it's just
it's bad. It's
They will
bad.
do.
And
People need to
Claudia, the
know.
long list of places you listed that the US is interfering. I said the devil is busy. Jesus.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know Hugo Chavez, when he visited the UN once, he said it smells like sulfur.
Sulfur,
I mean,
yeah.
the devil is busy. You know what I'm saying? And it
Uh-huh.
smells like, so it's stinking up the US even. We got to figure out where we're gonna send those mofos.
Yes.
yeah. There you go.
Right.
There you
All right,
go.
y'all. Peace. Have a good weekend on that.